Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today going to be going over our tier list predictions from at the end of season 1. Now that the 11.5 patch is out, everything's kind of hit. We're really seeing a lot of changes. So I just wanted to really quick do this video, go through all the specs, see where everybody's at currently compared to where they were at, where everybody's at now compared to where we predicted that they would be. Alright. Not really going to do too much detail, really just going to rank them and look at the differences and what I was thinking compared to where they're at now. Biggest reason for that is just trying to cover it, see how close I was, how far off I was. But I do have plans for some tier list videos coming up soon that I want to get posted, so I'm going to go more in depth with each individual spec in those. So first up, we have tanks. Alright, so originally we had predicted that the tanks would look like this, then here, now I think I'm missing one. Am I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yep, no. Okay, yeah, that's all 5 tank specs. Alright, so this is what originally we were predicting. Again, I'm not going to do a left to right significance because I heard another content creators say that nobody can really predict accurately in plus what one spec is better, because every spec has their own niche, every spec has their own like ability. So really what we're seeing is, or what we're predicting was something like this. Alright. Actually, I'm going to scratch it. I'm going to change how I was going to originally do this. I'm going to sort these based off of like IO, where they're looking at who's doing the highest keys. Alright, so essentially what it's actually looking like is Vengeance Demon Hunter is currently holding the cake. They are doing extremely well. Currently, right now, they're averaging a 3,500 IO. They are, let's see where they're currently there's time 20. With Demon Hunters, if you scroll through IO, like, I mean, it's just all purple. Alright, they make up the majority of the tanks, so they are definitely doing the best. Next up is the rather surprising Prot Warrior. Alright, Prot Warrior right now, they're holding 3,400 IO. They are doing some pretty decent keys, and also they're coming in second. And then our A tier is going to be made up of Prot Paladin and Blood Death Knight. There is currently a difference of 20 item levels between the average Death Knights and the average Protection Paladins. Alright, so this is really what we're seeing. And then making up the bottom, we have Brewmaster and Guardian Druid. Alright, so we were I was a little bit wrong my predictions. I was expecting it to be a Vengeance and Prot Paladin season. It's turning out to be more of a Vengeance and a Prot Warrior season. I definitely think that each of these specs has the potential to be clearing these higher keys. I think that if you build your comps in that way, then you'll get a lot farther. Alright, so this is what the tanks are looking like right now. Like I said, we expected it to be, you know, very different. To be perfectly honest, I kind of expected there to be a tier between the top tanks. I don't think that's the case, but I'll get into more of that when I make the videos as far as specific tier lists. Okay. Alright, so next up, we are going to do our healers. So we're looking at a Disc Priest, Resto Druid, and Mistweaver Monk. And then the next closest thing was going to be Holy Priest in the B tier. And then we had D tier for Preservation, and Holy Paladins. Alright, so... Oh, I forgot. Resto Druid is right there in the B tier. Alright, so this is kind of what we're looking at for the healers. I'm going to leave the... I'll leave the tanks up there just so we can kind of see, like, comparisons. Really, what we're seeing with healers is Disc Priest is just dominating. They're doing phenomenal in keys. Definitely leading the pack. However, we're actually seeing Restoration Shaman right alongside of them. It's a difference of 81 IO score between them. They are overall doing pretty well. Definitely had some really good shamans in my group. Had some really bad ones too, but overall, like, Shaman is a very solid healer. I think it brings a lot of utility to the group. It definitely doesn't bring the best damage, but it does bring some pretty powerful healing. It brings some CCs. It does a lot to really help your group out. All right. Next up, we are seeing Mistweaver Monk is going to be next in our S tier. So Mistweaver is sitting around the low 3400s on IO. I think the biggest issue that Mistweavers are facing is they're doing good damage, they're bringing good utility, but I think that they're just kind of failing at output. The throughput is just not there, and I think that if they had a little bit better, like, emergency healing, and if it wasn't so reliant on just really... Like, the damage healing is good, but they need some, like, Disciplined Priest has something in case of. I don't really think Monk has something in case of. They're definitely still clearing those higher keys. They're definitely doing very, very well right now. But in general, what we are actually seeing right now is that they're not doing that great. Alright. Next up, we have Restoration Druid, which is actually going to go into the A tier. I think that Resto is doing pretty good. I think that the healing style, I think there's a little bit too much bursty damage for them to really thrive, and I think that's the only thing that's holding them back. Holy Paladins, shockingly enough, are actually right up there with Resto Druids in the A tier. They are doing pretty well. They got some buffs, they got some changes, and I think that helped them out a lot. Next up, Holy Priest is actually going to stay in the B tier, and Preservation is going to stay in the D tier. So not much change with those. Alright. So moving into our DPS. Alright, so first up, we have Unholy taking the S tier. We have Balanced Druid taking the S tier. We have Arcane Mage taking the S tier. We have Retribution Paladin taking the S tier. Then we have Elemental also taking the S tier. Alright, so this is primarily the DPS that we're seeing. I think overall, really we're just seeing... Well, I spoke a little bit too soon. Move them back down there. Alright, so these are the DPS that we're seeing. So Unholy is making up, I mean they're in almost every single key. I'm only seeing one where they're not in the key in the top 40 runs. Then Arcane Mage is making up the rest of them. There's one Frost Mage here. Looks like there's some Frost and Arcane Mages. So let's go ahead and move Frost up here too. Because Frost and Arcane is making up most of the top end runs. I think the problem that Frost is running into is they are uniquely qualified for specific dungeons, but not every dungeon. And I think Arcane is doing pretty much overall better. Same thing with Retribution Paladin. Actually, I'm going to move them down. So Ret is in one of the top keys, but they're only averaging like a 3400 IO. So I am going to leave them down. As far as our A tier goes, we're going to add Enhance. Going to add Marksmanship. And this is going to make up our A tier. Alright, so red is pushing higher keys, elementals pushing higher keys, enhancements pushing higher keys, and marksmanship is pushing some higher keys. But they're only on the higher side of 3400, so they're not quite in that 3500 range quite yet. But that is about where they're going. Okay. And then let's see here. So we've got arms is going into the B tier, feral going into the B tier, assassination rogue going into the B tier, devastation going into the B tier, fire mage dropping to the B tier. There's a lot of B tier DPS specs. I'm not even gonna lie about that. Demonology is in the B tier, and Windwalker is in the B tier. Alright, so really the reason why these specs are in there is they're not quite pushing to that 3450 range. So they're still doing the high keys. They're doing really, really well. They are pushing content. They are getting there, but they're not quite to that top tier or pushing that top tier. And I think that when it comes right down to it, like that's really what is going to make up your S and your A tier. Is you're going to want the DPS who are able to at least like get close to the top tier. But at the same time, like it doesn't make them bad specs. B tier is really just like the subpar mediocre. Alright. Now, next up into the C tier we have Frost Death Knight, Shadow Priest, Destruction, Fury Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, Beast Mastery, and we'll stop here. Alright, so the C tier is really like the 3300 IO. Alright, that's really where these DPS are. So they're doing well, right? Don't get me wrong. Oh, I did miss one. Havoc Demon Hunter is in the B tier. They're just being overshadowed by Vengeance right now, so they're not as popular. Okay, that's their biggest issue. But C tier DPS, like they're still doing good, but most of these specs are going to require your tank to pull a certain way. Beast Mastery is a little bit different. It's being overshadowed by Marksmanship right now. And Outlaw Rogue is probably being overshadowed by Assassination Rogue, potentially. But in general, most of these specs, like, I know Frost Mage, like, it helps to do things a certain way. Same with Destruction Warlock. Shadow Priest, I'm assuming that's probably why they're down. It could also be because they're being overshadowed by Discipline Priest. So that's pretty much what we're looking at right now. And then making up our D tier, which are the lowest rankings, is going to be Sub Rogue, Survival Hunter. Oop, Affliction goes right in front of Sub. Here we go. And Augmentation. These are the specs, actually, in reality. This. Oops, that's D tier. Just the crap tier, okay? Unplayable, but not really. Alright, so in our D tier, alright, really what we're seeing here is these are the specs that are, the DPS specs that are kind of below 3300. Alright, they're still over 3K, but they're only at that 3200 range. They're not really pushing past. I think all three of them suffer from the fact that their damage profiles just aren't there. Sub Rogue has a very complicated cooldown, builder spender rotation. Survival is being outshined by both other specs, and you know the talent tree is kind of wonky. Affliction, just really the playstyle that you have to do is just a lot of work. It's very complicated. Maintaining your DPS is harder because you have to lose DPS so you can reapply your dots periodically, and you have to tab target, and so you lose DPS tab targeting around, and you get a little bit of it back, but you're not maintaining it, and you need to use your spenders, but you have to get your builders, which means tab targeting and dotting, and it can be a lot in AoE situations. I think in single target situations they might be doing a little bit better. I'm really not sure. I'd have to look at raid rankings to see that. But overall for the M+, that is what it is. And then Augmentation. Augmentation is the only DPS spec that is not, actually, it's the only spec in the game that is not averaging a 3K IO. They are just not doing great. They're not helpful. They're not bringing the same utility that they were last season and previous seasons. They're just not doing well. They're just not good. All right. So now let's look at the comparison. Okay. So first up, we have Protection Paladin. Okay, we were off on by one ranking. Same thing with Blood Death Knight. So there's still A tiers, but we predicted S. So then that is going to be, let's see, let me get my little sticky note out here. So that is a wrong, too wrong for our prediction. Next up, we have Vengeance Demon Hunter. Got that one right. Then we had Sub Rogue. Way off. Alright. Next up, we have an Enhancement, which we were wrong about that one as well. Discipline Priest, we definitely got that one. Same with Mistweaver Monk. Those were pretty easy to predict, though. Okay. Then, next up, we predicted Destruction. There's another one against us. So it looks like, so far, we are 0 for 3. And then Fire Mage. Fire Mage started off, I'm going to give a half a point to each side because Fire Mage started out in S tier, but then after 11.5. So I guess technically that would have had it wrong because it didn't last. But I'm going to go with a half a point. Okay. So my half point. Next up is A tier. We predicted Prot Warrior. We are wrong on that one. Next up, we predicted both Death Knight specs. We were wrong about both of those. Arms and Fury Warrior. Well, wrong on both of those too. Feral. Definitely wrong about Feral. And then we had Affliction. Off on that one. Off on Arcane Mage. Off on Frost Mage. Which I guess you could argue Frost is like between A and B, but it's not. We were off on Beast Mastery. Hey, look at that. We finally got one right with Elemental. Alright, next up is going to be the B tier. We did predict both Guardian Druid and Brewmaster would be a B tier tank. We got the Holy Priest being a B tier healer. We were wrong about Survival. We got Windwalker kind of on the spot. We were wrong about our Ret Paladin. Wrong about Restoration Shaman. Wrong about Balance Druid. We did get Devastation. Then we were wrong about Shadow. And then in our C tier, we were also wrong about Havoc. Got Outlaw Combat correct. And we got both of Demonology Warlock and Marksmanship Hunter wrong. And then in our D tier, hey, we got Preservation correct. And we got Augmentation correct. But we got, let's see, yeah. And Holy Paladin we also got wrong. So on the bright side, we got 13.5 of our predictions were right. But it is what it is. Win some, you lose some. Again, this was how things were looking before the start of the season, so it was kind of difficult to make this list and be accurate with it. But it is good to see that we are kind of seeing a meta emerge. We are kind of seeing like some people are finding their places. But again, don't let this tier list persuade you to play a certain spec or class. All right, play what you enjoy. Have fun with the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. See you later.